Okay, we're back to talk about Pluribus, Episode 7, The Gap on Apple TV. This episode written by Jen Carroll, directed by Adam Bernstein. Two Better Call Saul alums back for this episode. In Episode 7, Carol returns to Albuquerque after her trip to Las Vegas and continues to use the other's desire to please her to get anything she wants, including gas, ice-cold Gatorade, and fancy meals out at restaurants. But after more than a month in isolation, she becomes severely depressed. She almost lets herself be killed by a giant firework and cannot find happiness in anything available to her anymore. She eventually paints Come Back on the road in her cul-de-sac, which prompts Zoja to return. Carol breaks down in tears and embraces her. Meanwhile, in South America, Manusos begins the long trip from Paraguay to New Mexico that refuses any help from the others and leaves money from anyone who takes gas or supplies. When he reaches the Darien Gap, he's warned by the others to not go in, warning that it is too treacherous. They offer to take him to New Mexico. They offer to bring his car, but he burns the car so they can't use it and sets off into the gap. Not long after, he's impaled by some of the chunga palm trees, receiving several wounds on his back. He tries to treat them himself, but eventually becomes too weak, collapses. The others drop in from a helicopter to presumably rescue him to safety. In a
Yeah.
show that already has very, very little dialogue, this episode really had very little dialogue, yet I was intrigued and sort of captivated the entire time. So credit to the two stars as we sort of look at both of their journeys over the course of this about 35 days. I'm curious if you were as captivated as I was by these two people's journey.
I guess I wasn't. So let's start there. As you know, I always like to go negative first if I'm going
Yeah.
to do it at all. Because with this one, I have found myself, of course, thinking about it and mulling it over in since I watched it last
Hmm.
night, and starting to feel like, okay, well, this is one of those episodes of TV that I like better in retrospect. I get what they were doing and so on, but to be honest, as I watched the episode, I didn't feel terribly captivated or entertained
Interesting.
personally.
Okay.
Um, that's not to say it wasn't good,
Right.
but and it's interesting because also almost immediately after watching it, I went to see if the official podcast was up yet,
Hmm.
and it
Hmm.
was. And so I listened to it immediately after watching this episode.
Yep.
This was like after midnight because I watched football and then I watched Pluribus and then
Yeah.
so and that was interesting. And one of the things I was curious about was like where they filmed the Darien Gap stuff.
Yep.
Uh, it's no surprise that it was not actually in
In the
that
gap.
location. I was curious about it. Um, and there were a lot of interesting kind of production details. And I don't know, did you listen to the official podcast this week yet? I
I
know you
did. I
did.
listened to it driving today. So yeah, I had about a 12 or 14-hour gap in between watching and listening to it. Yeah.
They were talking about things like Manuso's car and
Hmm.
having to get different iterations of the car for different filming locations. And okay, I'm not saying it wasn't good, but particularly maybe it had something to do with my mood last night I was watching it even. I couldn't help but have this feeling like the show creators just a little bit up their own asses with this one.
Ah, okay.
Does that make
Okay.
sense to you?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
come on,
So I will
you're
say, especially when you in reference to the podcast. So the podcast, and they say this at the beginning of everyone, is very much not anything to do with recap, theories, where we're going, what's happening in the story. They talk very, very little about that. And so it's very much this is sort of how we made the episode. And I did find that this episode of the podcast, I actually didn't even finish it. I turned it off with 6 or 7 minutes left because there was a whole lot of look at what we were able to do, or look who we were able to look how creative we are, look how good we are, look at all that we were able to do in these interesting locations when we weren't allowed to, and all of these things. So there was a lot of pat us on the back for what we were able to accomplish here.
Yeah, but there was, I was starting to feel that way a little bit about the episode itself.
Okay.
But this is where, as I said before, it's almost like I appreciate it more in retrospect, if that makes sense, that what they're trying to pull off here, I think as I think you already said,
Yeah.
is an episode of television that's going to center around two characters in separation from one another
Yep.
with almost no dialogue, right?
Correct. Correct.
Very little dialogue. You have, for example, I mean, what you have Carol calling the voicemail to request a Gatorade and stuff like
Yep.
that, and that's almost it, you know. Or
Hmm.
Minusos has a couple of encounters with some
Yeah.
of the
Apparently,
others.
Menusos has like 20 words with when he gives his little monologue before he goes into the gap. Carol has some requests on the phone. Otherwise, it's just Menusos practicing English, Carol singing some songs and making some noises, but very, very, very little.
Oh yeah, yeah. She starts singing to herself and so on. That was interesting, and the fact that there's evidence that people will tend to do that,
Hmm.
in extended periods of solitude. But then I don't know. I got wondering about a couple of things. She's singing to herself. Does she not have access to music?
She does because she plays some music while she's hitting golf balls into building windows later in the episode.
Right. But not in the car?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, maybe sort of if it's like, we wouldn't have satellite radio or whatever. They haven't entirely made that
Yeah,
sort of stuff clear.
yeah.
And so then to kind of entertain herself, it's hitting golf balls into building windows at one point. It
Right.
becomes, and fireworks from the gas station. Why didn't the others clear out that gas station when they cleared out the grocery store?
Yeah. I did notice
Um,
it was so it seemed to be clear of food, but anything that was not food, they just left for, I guess that's not of their use right now.
I mean, I guess that makes some sense. There's like we don't care, you
Yeah.
know. Um, she messes with some lottery tickets, which of course makes no sense at all. I, I guess I guess that's to the point of what they're trying to do,
Yeah.
right? But earlier in the series, we saw her, sitting around in her house watching the Golden Girls.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I guess there's no television. I guess that's been established, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
in the premiere, when she turned it on, all she could find was the guy on C-SPAN.
Right.
So maybe she just has the Golden Girls on DVD and doesn't have much other physical media or something. That's not
Yeah.
fully established. Um, she's an author. Surely she has a bunch of books she hasn't read. Surely
Right.
she does. I mean, come on.
Well, you've got a whole world of books available to you. Yeah.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, whether you have them at home or not, you can go to the library, presumably. So I guess part of my feeling was I'm not sure that what they were doing worked for me the way it was supposed to, right? I mean, I think it's clear that all of this is supposed to be establishing her increasing loneliness and
Hmm.
boredom. Um, I don't know. Any thoughts there? Because to me,
Yeah.
part
So
of
I
it is
think
just like, why not? Why aren't you like reading books or something?
I think the thing that worked best for me was that the fact that each character had sort of equal airtime in this episode and showing I don't even know if this is the right word, but this is what I put in our notes. Sort of showing the ethic or the sort of purpose that each person has in dealing with these whatever they are, these aliens or these afflicted people, these others that Carol, while forced to not have any sort of contact with them, is still going to take advantage of them in every way that she possibly can until she just sort of realizes that she's kind of hopeless without interaction. Manuzos, on the other hand, wants absolutely nothing to do with them and is opposed to so opposed to taking advantage of anyone or anything or getting something that he doesn't feel like he deserves or something that does not belong to him that he's siphoning gas and leaving money for them on their windshields. So just sort of showing that comparison of how they are dealing with their circumstances of A, being alone, B, apparently searching for the same thing although they may not realize that yet, and C, knowing that they are very, very isolated, not just or literally isolated away from people, but isolated in their views of how they are going to interact with these people. Sort of showing that comparison, I think, was what was interesting to me. I think it sets up an interesting dynamic between the two of them when they presumably are going to meet the next episode. So it sets up something to where I think Medusa is coming to her hoping that he finds a comrade that's just like him, and he's going to find that she does things in a way that he doesn't approve of.
Yeah, but it has already been something of a turn on Carol's part. I mean, certainly by the end of the episode, but I mean even before that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because earlier in the season, she was refusing food from them and so on,
right.
right? And now in this episode, I feel it makes sense to me because I feel like, well, she's gotten sort of just frustrated and she's isolated. And unfortunately, the only way to get stuff is through these other people, right? Through
Yeah,
these others, you know?
yeah.
Um, I did feel like we've talked about this before. I've been maybe more sympathetic to Carol than a lot of people.
Yeah,
Like I see comments on Blue Sky and stuff like this, and boy, man, a lot of people really dislike her as a person.
yeah, yeah,
And I don't really, and whatever that says about me, I feel like I largely get it in terms of how she's reacted and how she's behaved. But I did feel like with the Gatorade and stuff like that, this episode was really trying to push on like, no, you must view her as a,
yeah.
miserable, unlikable character.
And I have to say, I have not done a lot of digging or looking into whether it's social media or Reddit or whatever for about this episode. I wonder what the reaction is or will be about her response at the end of this when she finally sees Zoja, and I mean, I mean, literally in tears breaks down. Is it a sense that even the most, are they trying to convey that even the most miserable people, even the people who think that they will be able to withstand isolation and be able to withstand something where they can push themselves away because they want nothing to do with that other group. Even they reach a breaking point where they have to have some kind of interaction, some sort of sense of belonging or community. Will we ever get to that point with Manusos? The interesting thing is I don't ever. He gives the impression that I don't ever feel like we will.
Yeah, and so I mean, this kind of goes back to the criticism I was putting forward before. For me, I guess I'm not entirely sure they did the work.
Got it. Okay.
I see where they're trying to go and where they're get to at the end of the episode. And that was part of why I wanted to listen to the official podcast too. And they did say some things along these lines where I got the impression they felt like they didn't need to do the work
Mm,
and or didn't need to do more work than they did, you know. And that's choice. And again, I get it. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's part of what I would say. They didn't get me there as
yeah.
someone who um I imagine would react in a lot of ways that are fairly similar to how Carol has reacted.
Hmm.
Um, like you aren't really autonomous persons anymore. You're weirdly nice zombies. I mean, I'll give you that you're weirdly nice, but there's the
Yeah.
zombie part. Um, but yeah, like I was saying before, I guess this would be me if I were in her situation. I would be, trying to read books, watching films, watching television, or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Like I'm presuming she was watching Golden Girls before, even if that's the only DVD set she owns. Other stuff should be out there too for her to go
Yeah,
and find,
you have anything you
Um,
want in minutes. You're right.
so I feel much more like the guy in the Twilight Zone who's like happy in the library before he breaks his glasses. You know what I mean? Um, so I don't know. I guess that's not Carol.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And I just, it's interesting to think about for what we've established in 6 episodes that to me, it seemed like the trajectory was going to be, wow, I can survive this way. I can, I'm not Mr. Diabate, but I can find the things that I've always wanted to do, the things that entertain me, the things that make me happy, and I don't need other people to do them. Do I wish Helen and others were here? Yes, but I can survive and maybe even thrive in sort of sense of how I'm treating myself in this situation, but it takes her about a month to get, I mean, to an absolute breaking
Yeah.
point, to the point where it seems like she would have been fine if that firework hit her in the face.
Yeah, and okay, so this is the thing. I have to take the show on its own terms, and what is the show telling me about Carol, right?
Right.
So even if I personally would be catching up on my reading or whatever, I guess that's not Carol. And thinking about it, maybe something really was established about her character back in the premiere with the book reading and all of that, even though she was expressing some annoyance to her fans or condescending a little bit,
Yeah.
particularly when she's talking afterwards with Helen and so on. Um, that she wants that. She wants the acclaim. She wants the fame,
Yeah.
such as she's gotten it through writing these books. And part of what bothers her about the others is now it becomes meaningless, right? Like
Yes. Yeah.
when she's talking to Jeff Hiller,
Yeah.
uh,
Larry, is it?
Larry, I think, yeah, I was going to Larry, I
Yeah.
think we are Larry or whatever,
Yeah.
in a previous episode, and he's telling her how much they love her books. It's meaningless,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
more where she's coming from, so um, that she is pushed through this prolonged solitude towards realizing that how much she does, I don't know, care about other people when it comes down to it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but then, okay, here's a question. The others at first were around, and then she made them cry.
Mm-hmm.
So they decided they needed some space, and
Right.
right, and they leave her all alone in Albuquerque. Is this coercive? Ultimately, by the end of this
Mm.
episode, she's come around to where she's going to paint on the
Yeah.
road. Come back, and as you mentioned, Zosia comes back. She breaks down in tears because she's
Yeah.
just been so broken down by the solitude that the connection with another person is so
Yeah.
meaningful to her. But they forced that solitude on her. So that's
I
why I'm
I, I
asking, is it
think
coercive?
I think you're right for that I could read it as that way for two reasons. One would be they realized even by the time that she does that to Zoja with the drugs and making them cry that there is a point where she is first relying on them for things. She's not isolated herself at that point. She's relying on them for certain things and she's asking them for things and they are providing and they have this sort of relationship where they do that. I think, but also there's a sense of I think how do I put this? Even in Carol's sort of most bitterness and being brutally bored and turned off by having to do a book reading and interact with all the fans, she still had Helen as a confidant that she could complain to afterwards, and they could go through all this
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And Helen, who would put her book at the top shelf at the airport, all this stuff. And so realizing that while she may seem like someone who would thrive in isolationism, that really they know that she is desperate for that interaction with someone in some way. And so, as you said, pulling back from that and giving her none of it, I do think in a sense is, well, without telling you that we're going to do this, we're going to make you change change your mind and change your actions toward us.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. There's something like kind of passive aggressive about it.
Yeah.
Um, Her arc, you got me thinking about. It's probably clear to everyone, but just to lay it out there, after the joining has occurred, I mean, right? Her first response is, "I'm going to go home and get drunk and watch the Golden Girls."
Right.
Right. Her then that turns to, I've got to figure out what's going on and do something about it. Right.
Hmm.
It seems like all of humanity has turned into nice zombies. I've got to figure this out and do something about it. And that's what she's trying to do over the middle part of this season, right? Through last week, where then she goes to Vegas, right? And she finds out that Kumba already knows that they're eating people and isn't
Right.
all that upset about it. I mean, it is
Yeah.
troubling. It is troubling. But John Cena explained it pretty well, you know.
Yeah,
And then, if you recall,
that's right.
there's also that bit where she says something. They're having breakfast, and she says something like, maybe she'll go get a room, you know, find a room in another part of the hotel or whatever, and we can talk more later. Um, and then she says that she's joking, right? She says she's messing with him. I don't think she was joking, right? I think that
I don't think so. We
he
would stay there and figure it
reacted.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, he reacted in this negative way, at least with his facial expression. So she's like, "Oh, I'm just kidding. I'm getting out of here." So now, by the time we get to this episode, even at the beginning of it, she's
Yeah.
already a bit despondent. She's already sort of given up, right? Um, she's not finding a source of hope that she's going to be able to do anything to make the world right again. Manusos
Right.
might ultimately provide that, but he's not around yet, right? And there's something of a time jump ultimately, right? I mean, we go from day 12 to day 48 or something like that.
Yeah.
And we
Yep.
see what she's doing with the golf and the fireworks and everything. But I guess it does make sense. But again, for me, it's more like I can appreciate it more looking back on the episode, what they were doing in terms
Hmm.
of her prolonged solitude leading her to break
Yeah.
and at the end of her arc here. Whereas while I was watching it, I was kind of like,
Yeah. That's why I think I just appreciated the comparison of the two because I think so for example, the Georgia O'Keeffe painting that she takes out of the museum and brings to her house to replace the print that they have up, right? Just
yeah,
representative of you can literally have anything at any time. That's not what she actually wants. She
yeah,
actually, it turns out, after 35 days of having anything that you want, what she is desperately needing is even a hug from a really nice zombie. I mean, that will sort of give her a little bit of what she's seeking.
yeah, needing some human connection.
Yeah,
So I get that. We need to talk about Menusos a little more.
yeah.
Again, the episode's meaningfully split between their two stories. Um, how did all of this work for you? I mean, a lot of it is him driving. You mentioned how he will go siphon gas and leave some money on the windshield. He's practicing his English. We talked about the Darien Gap last week.
Yeah.
I think ultimately it is clear that he knew he was going to run into that and just planned to hike across it. I think, right?
Yeah, again, that's
Um,
what it seems like, and I did, confirm some things that we talked about last week that he is, that gap begins in Colombia. This is a character that is from Colombia. There is no sense that he would have just been surprised by this, but brought some supplies, brought his machete, ready to get himself somehow across that. What his plan would be after that, I don't exactly know. Leave money in a somebody's garage for their car or whatever. I'm not sure, but it's
walk all the way to New Mexico.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, a pretty clear. This is just digging several layers deeper on, what we thought we knew about Manusos, but just there is literally to show there's literally nothing that can change his mind or change his motivation or his desire to avoid these things at all costs.
Yeah, so it seems. And I want to talk about that a little bit more here in just a moment. First, I want to talk a little bit more about the Darien Gap and how it factors in because I'm really curious to see more reactions from people in the world than I've seen so far. I haven't
Mm,
really seen a lot of reactions to this episode yet, like on the internet,
yeah,
because of course we saw this coming. We talked about it on the podcast last week, but at the same time, you told me last week you didn't know about this until I told you about it
that's
last
correct.
week,
Yeah,
right? So one has to imagine that a lot of people watching this episode didn't know about this.
I would think
Do you
that's right.
do you
Yeah.
feel like the episode did a good enough job of um, sort of explaining what was going on?
I would certainly say no, because I read some things that before we jumped on last week, we talked about this, did some looking at it after we finished. Yes, there are treacherous hikes and dangerous plants and animals out there, but apparently it's just I mean, there are things like flash flooding, that there are storms throughout there, that there is weather that's just impassable, that there are, I mean, it's not just, oh, they're not marked trails, but you can walk through it. No, they're just simply places that you cannot pass through.
Yeah.
And so while the Chungapom is a pretty dangerous thing I've never seen or heard of before, there could have been lot scarier things, frankly.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting how the episodes kind of spent a lot of time with him driving
Hmm.
and didn't spend all that much time with him hiking and in peril.
Right. Right.
Um, I don't know. Yeah, I'll be curious to kind of seek out some more reaction. I'm wondering, excuse me, I guess I'm wondering in particular about people watching this episode not even knowing that this Darien Gap exists.
Yes.
Did it
Yeah.
take them
Yeah.
out of the episode, right? Like, were people watching this just expecting, well, he's just going to keep driving all the way up
Keep
to New
driving.
Mexico,
Yeah.
and then this happens? Whereas we saw it coming. We knew it was going to happen, right? And we talked about it last week. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter all that much. Maybe it's led to an uptick in people Googling Darien Gap.
I'm sh
Uh,
I am sure if you look at the Google Trends, it would be the largest spike ever by magnitudes. Yes.
yeah. Very treacherous though, and they do. I mean, at least I think that works in terms of the others showing up and really trying to caution him against going through and offering to hey, we'll take you to New Mexico. You want to go see Carol, right? Which that's another thing
Yeah. Yeah.
where they have no sense of what's the right term? I almost want to say they lack emotional intelligence. I don't know if that's the right term.
Yes. What you're saying is, in part of emotional intelligence is knowing when to withhold and when to move forward and when to, when to disclose and when to not. I mean, that was about as bad as sending his mother to him, who's posing as someone who's nice. For them to realize that they know what he's thinking and know what his motivations are, that
Hmm.
was no, he is not having any of that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, they don't understand how these people are going to react or something like that,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
who are you talking to and how do you talk to them effectively.
Not
uh,
only are you not going to move my car, you're not going to be able to use this as a resource because I'm going to burn it to the ground.
yeah, setting it on fire. They did say on the official podcast too, they actually did set that car on fire,
Yeah, yeah.
for whatever that's worth. um but so presuming Menusos, we've established while he was living in Paraguay, he was Colombian, right? So
Correct.
presuming he's fully aware of what's going on with the Darien Gap, how treacherous it is, and so
Hmm.
on. Um, what he is trying to do in terms of hiking across it is pretty stupid and not very rational, right?
Yeah.
Um, like maybe he knows that some people have made it across and so on, right? But still, there's just a real stubbornness to his unwillingness to accept any help when the danger is this great, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's no sense that, I mean, of the people that made it across, I'm sure they had groups of people to protect one another. They had certainly more substantial supplies. But I don't get a sense that he has any food with him. He's having to pick it up along the way, or he's paying for it, or leaving money, at a gas station or whatever.
Isn't
So
he eating some kind of protein bar or something
yeah,
at
he's
one
doing
point?
something. So I guess he's just, paying for that as he goes, just like he is for gas.
But here's the thing too. The thing is like 100 kilometers across.
Exactly.
I was trying to do a little math in my head thinking about that. I should have like done actual math. 100 kilometers is what, like 60 miles, 66
Yeah,
miles?
65-ish miles. Yeah.
So if you think about walking, I don't know, how many miles would you say you could walk in a day? Maybe 10?
Yeah, I was gonna say a normal pace on a standard road be about 3 to 4 miles an hour. And so yeah, you can get through about 10, 12 miles a day, maybe a little more.
Maybe a little more. Yeah. I mean, if you've got good conditions, we don't have good conditions. We've got like the worst possible conditions,
No.
right? So it's like At best, it's going to take him a week to get across this.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Easy.
No chance, man.
No.
Now, maybe another reason why I was somewhat frustrated with my viewing experience is I felt like this ended right when it was about to have its most interesting moment to me.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
And I wonder what you think about this because he slips on the rock, gets stabbed in the back by the chunga palms, which people don't know. I looked into it a little bit. Those are entirely real trees that do look just like that.
Yeah.
You know, they seem so alien when the first
Right.
time I saw it, you know.
Exactly.
Apparently, also like a really useful resource people in the area use for a lot of different things for what it's worth. If you know what you're doing, they're also very dangerous.
Yeah.
Anyway, he slips and gets stabbed, and then he's trying to care for himself by cauterizing his wounds with a hot machete,
Yeah.
and then he keeps going and ultimately collapses, right? And then the helicopter shows up, and we see others ascending, right?
Yeah.
So presumably they're going to airlift him out of there.
Right. Right.
Um, do they need his consent? Will they ask for his consent? Will they get his
Hmm.
consent? Will they take him out even without it? That's my question.
I think I thought you were actually going to go with a different way with that. So I'll answer yours, then I'll sort of pose something else that I think
Okay.
was a missed opportunity. I think that I'll put it this way, sort of tie the two together. I'd like to see, did they go down in this helicopter, and was he of the right mind enough to be able to tell them either yes or no, knowing that if he says no, that's it. He's dead. But I think that I'm going to guess that they sort of did this in a moment where he is just too weak or unable to respond to them, communicate with them. They're just fulfilling their no harm and will do whatever it takes to save him. So I'm going to guess that they had no consent, that they are doing this against what he would say is his will, and if, assuming he is recovering from this, that we see in future episodes, this is going to make him even more angry or hostile towards them.
Yeah, I think so too. And I was thinking about Zoja makes a remark in an earlier episode about saving someone from drowning.
Yep, yep,
Um, and you think about that, people talk about a duty of rescue and so
hmm
on. So I think it fits, but it's definitely a wrinkle where I mean that's one of the big things I've been thinking about with the show is that their philosophy, I guess, or their
yep,
ethics, their moral
yeah.
philosophy, as it were, right?
And so
What was the thing that you were going to say?
yeah, so the other thing I was going to say was, this show has had no problems going back and forth within the timeline of this sort of post-joining era. I really hope that we don't just get Manusos brought to where Carol is, or we see sort of them paving an easy path for him to get to her, that there is some sense of we see this interaction of them landing and trying to take care of him, or we see him in recovery and trying to struggle to get away from it, or get free from them, or doesn't want any help from them. I want to see something of those. I guess it's 35 days that we're missing before presumably Carol and Manusos interact.
Yeah, me too. And I think that I think we'll get that.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know exactly what it will be, and perhaps that's why they leave it where they leave it. But even just for me, a little bit more extending that scene
Hmm.
to make it clear, because I think we're right that they're just going to go down there and grab him to help him and save his life,
Yep.
and that they don't feel like that is something that requires consent.
Yeah.
Um, but I kind of would have liked to actually seen that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
We know from last episode that they believe harm requires consent. Rescue or healing, maybe they don't feel that it requires consent.
Right. I think.
Yeah.
So, but then what exactly are they going to do? They're going to take him to the nearest hospital, you know,
Yeah.
or because I think this gets at what you were talking about, right? You could almost imagine they know that he wants to go to Albuquerque, so they just take him to Albuquerque, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. If he wakes up in a hospital in Albuquerque with a map to say this is Carol's house, yeah, I'll be really disappointed in that.
But maybe, yeah, I'd be a little bit disappointed, at least a little bit disappointed. It's tough because, like, on the other hand, if he wakes up in a hospital in Panama
Hmm.
and is recuperating,
Right, right, right.
and they say, hey, you want to ride to New Mexico, and he's like, oh, I hate all of you, I'm going to insist on walking the whole way.
Yeah,
There is another part of this, like, how much they're going to drag this out. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Like, it could start to feel too
Yeah, like
too
we
tight now.
can't drag this out till second season. Would they have to meet this season, obviously? So this have to be wrapped up somewhat soon.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I guess that was also circling back around to where we started, um, in terms of my somewhat negative reaction, was also me feeling like, in a certain way, the story didn't progress all that much in this
Hmm.
episode. If the way in which they were moving Carol towards the breaking point in her solitude had landed better for me, I could see it.
Yeah, yeah,
And then maybe the same thing with Manusos. Maybe it just didn't land as well for me as maybe it did for you. Maybe it did for other
yeah.
people, or as they intended it to. So when I think back on it, I'm like, oh, well, it's kind of an interesting episode. It's a risky thing to do,
Hmm.
to make an episode like this that has this sort of structure and so on. I just don't know if it fully worked for me, I guess.
Yeah, interesting. No, I do think as we're talking here that there are some things that can certainly identify that I think we're missing or that we should have seen or should have had a part of this. Maybe it's just me being swayed by just I think think about what kind of heavy lift both Ray Seahorn and Vesca had to play in this episode, and just sort of being maybe overwhelmed or just excited by what I saw, and that sort of for me overshadowed a little bit of what I thought might be missing from plot.
Yeah, okay, fair.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm gonna have to look for more reactions on the internet and the like, because part of me does have the feeling, Ryan, that this is gonna be one of those ones where it's like everyone is saying, like, this is the best episode ever,
Yeah.
give it all the Emmys, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna be ever going like, I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah. Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like that Severance episode. I was kind of like that with. Um, but I mean, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Um, it's just, well, yeah, it's odd to me how much I'm really enjoying the show, but at the same time, part of me is withholding judgment because I want to see where it goes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
Yes. I get that.
maybe that's going to come down to how the first season ends.
Right.
I'm sure I'll keep watching season two regardless, but um, I feel like something should happen. Something significant should happen by the time we get to the end of the first season. And we've only got two
Yeah.
episodes left now.
There are several mysteries they can still solve or give us answers to that doesn't have to reveal everything. We can wrap certain things up, I believe.
Right, because that's the thing. How much we know. Okay, we know that, just kind of tying everything together. We know that it would be possible to reverse the joining. We don't
Yes.
know how, right?
Yes.
We know that it would be possible for Carol and the other 12 to join the hive, but they would have to provide consent
Correct.
for this invasive stem cell procedure. We know that, right?
Yes.
Some of the ones we met are probably going to do that,
Yep.
right? Um, Maybe eventually even Diabate will get bored and be willing to do that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So we know that it's possible in both directions there, right? We know that the others are consuming corpses
Hmm.
and are going to run out of food in 10 years,
Yep.
right? They said 10 years.
Yep.
I don't think we're going to have like some kind of time jump where that's really coming to a head
No, I wouldn't think so.
anytime soon here. So, yeah, what's the next move, right?
Mm.
in terms of the plot. In Manusos and Carol presumably will meet by the end of season one,
Yeah.
and I hope before it. Like I hope next week. I
I
hope
would,
that's not the end of the season, personally.
yeah, I certainly hope so. I think we know enough about Manusos and Carol to know that they are not, Carol keeps looking for doctors or, you know, bioscientists or others that might have some sort of information or knowledge of what could be done here. These two people don't seem like, I think we might get some answers of what the thing is they could do to perhaps start turning this around, but that there's nothing that these two would actually be able to do. They'd have to then use use the others themselves somehow to make it happen, right? Um, so I'm
Yeah.
curious to see how much of that information is revealed, if anything.
Yeah, right. I mean, thinking back a few weeks, I recall sort of speculating or predicting that Carol would ask for information about this and then try to figure
Hmm.
out the science or whatever.
Yep.
And I was kind of like directionally correct. But what she did instead was, handcuff herself to Zozia and try to force the information out of her.
Right.
Um, so maybe with Manusos, it would be more of the kind of thing that I was imagining earlier, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can we effectively do some research to start figuring out what would need to be done to
Exactly.
reverse
Yeah.
this?
What can we
Um,
do? The two of us, what are we able or capable of doing to get moving down this road? I think that's an interesting question to answer.
yeah. Okay. So hopefully I didn't seem too negative on the episode. I mean, I do still think it's good. I think it's a good show and all of that. It was just, it was kind of odd for me to realize as I was watching it last night how I didn't feel like I was as entertained or enjoying it as much as previous episodes personally.
Yeah.
So, um, curious to see where we go from here. Anything else you want to say about this one before we wrap up?
I think that's it. We have I forget sort of the track record of Apple TV's penultimate episodes, but this is the penultimate episode coming up, so I expect some good things.
Yeah, same. All right. Thanks as always for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. If so, please do leave us a good rating, review, all that good stuff. If you're on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel, greatly appreciated. You can find all sorts of written work on TV on tvobsessive.com. Encourage you to check out the site, poke around a bit. If you want to follow us on social media, search for TV Obsessive and you should find us. And as for the podcast, we'll be back with you next week.
All right, looking forward to that. See you next time.